You're listening to The Power Project. I'm your host, Brandy Voth, and it's my goal each week to inspire and empower you with stories of women that are leading purpose-filled lives and owning their God-given power. However, this week, we're going to change it up just a tad. I will tell you now that there are triggers in this week's episode, but I think it's an episode that we should all hear. It's in loving memory of my beautiful friend, Lindsay, and we're going to be discussing the subjects of mental health, depression, anxiety, and suicide. I do believe that there's a takeaway for everyone in this episode, and I thank each and every one of my guests today for sharing their truth with all of us in hopes that we can reach one person out there that needs to hear this message. May God bless this podcast today. Depression doesn't always look like doom, gloom, and despair. It may not hide behind dark glasses, baggy clothes, and a disheveled appearance. It may not lock itself up indoors and not come out amongst society. It may be put together perfectly and hiding behind a gorgeous smile and flawless appearance. It may sit across from you at a table and chat life, love, and family without ever introducing itself. It may very well be the person on the other end of the phone, the receiving end of a text, or the last like on a social media post. It is no judge of persons and doesn't have a certain type. It may invade the mind of a middle class, well-educated, Christ-following, beautifully talented, devoted wife, mother, daughter, granddaughter, cousin, sister, aunt, and friend. Depression doesn't want you talking about it. It wants to stay tucked away in the dark shadows, where it can tear lives apart and no one will notice until it is too late. It is time that we take a stand. It's time that we talk about it. In a world where we are oversharing on social media daily, telling people how we feel and what we had for breakfast, we have to choose to bring mental illness to the forefront. For far too long, we, the church, have treated mental illness like a lack of Christianity. We have told those that suffer that they should pray more and draw closer to God. Any struggle with mental illness has been treated as if that person isn't walking in faith. While praying and drawing closer to God are crucial in this struggle, seeking help, reaching out, and knowing that it is okay to ask for support is critical. We Christians must begin treating mental illness in the same manner that we would treat cancer, aggressively. We have to let those that suffer know that they can talk about it. They are not pariahs, nor are they any less of a child of God. They have to know that they can stand in Christ's presence and ask for support, love, and mercy from their fellow believers. We have to stand and say that we will be those Christians. We will be the hands and the feet of Jesus. We will be the shoulder to cry on and the support that they need. We will love without passing judgment, and we will look the enemy in the face and call him out of the darkness. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1:5. The world lost a beautiful soul this week. You are missed dearly, my friend. But know this, because of you, we will have the conversations. We will be aware. We will know that it is okay to ask for help, just as we know that it is our duty to offer help. I wrote those words on January 17th of 2018, last year, after losing a friend that I have known my entire life. Or I've known her entire life because she was a little bit younger than me. She was beautiful and she was vibrant. And she had the voice of an angel. If only she would have just known how very much she impacted all those that came in contact with her. She could walk in a room and light up a room and turn every head in the room. And I sat with her, talking with her not long before she was gone. And I had no clue, not a clue, couldn't have guessed it. We literally talked about everything. We talked about family and marriage and life and kids and everything. Her cute Lululemon dress that she had on with like pizza slices on it or watermelons, something. And I had no clue. And it rocked not only my personal world, but it rocked the entire community around us. Our families were close families growing up, and I watched her grow up, and we played together as young kids, and we spent time together as teenagers and young adults, and then as mothers and wives, we knew each other in that role as well. And never in the entire time of her existence on the face of this planet did I know that she suffered from depression and anxiety. She was fighting an inward battle secretly and didn't know that it was okay to share and ask for help. I sure wish that I would have known. It's not like there's anything I could have done, but sure would have been nice to be able to tell her just how stinking special she was. And so I really was determined to make sure that her light goes on to shine to others and that people know that it's okay to talk about this. And so I wrote those words. I say that God wrote the words. It was on my heart heavy to write something about it and share something, because with all the stuff that we put on social media, it sure is nice when someone puts something out there that can help one person. And I thought, man, if this could just reach one person that knows that it's okay to talk about this, and it's okay to feel like you're not okay, it's okay to not be okay, then we've reached that mission. And so this year I wanted to devote this week's episode to my sweet friend. I know that she's up there singing with the angels, and that's where her voice sounds like it originated from anyhow. So I'm going to share today some stories of others that have been impacted and lost loved ones to mental health issues and depression and suicide. And we're also going to provide just a little insight into the Christian view of mental health and how we are coming together to try to change the stigmas. My first guest today is the talented Andrea Thomas Hand. She is a singer-songwriter out of Nashville, Tennessee. She is the former backup singer for Carrie Underwood, and she was on The Voice last year. Not only is Andrea a rock star on the music scene doing all the things, but she's also cousin to my dear friend Lindsay that we lost suddenly and unexpectedly last year. And she's now taken her platform on the music scene and using it to bring awareness to mental health and suicide prevention, mental well-being. She's a ray of light, and I cannot wait for you guys to meet her. So without further ado, hey, Andrea, how are you?
Hey, it's good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Thanks for taking the time out to be with me today. And you are up in Nashville, correct?
Yes, I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and it's been wonderful being here. I'm from Fort Worth, Texas, so I'm a Texas native, but I'm loving Nashville.
How cool. And give me, just tell everyone a little about your story, about your career, about Lindsay. Just give us a little insight into what drives you in what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I come from a history of gospel music, country gospel music. My grandparents were in country gospel music, and I've just continued moving in that direction. And I've been doing music since I was a little girl, and I moved here with my family in Nashville and went to school at Belmont University, and then started writing my own songs and singing out, and love singing Christian music, and God kind of put me in the country music circle as well, and I started singing for Carrie Underwood, and that was really fun. I got to go out with her for a couple years, and then God kind of moved me out on my own, and I started redoing my songs again, and got on The Voice last year, actually 2017 now, And that was a really cool experience. I got to be on Blake Shelton's team and learned a lot about myself and learned a lot about just, how we respond on live performances like that and all the pressure of lights, camera. And it was really cool. There were so many talented people there that I got to meet and love on. And so with Lindsay, actually there has been several of our friends in our lives, even before Lindsay, that have fallen prey to depression and taking their life, and have fallen prey to depression. And when this happened with Lindsay, it was really just a huge awakening for all of us in the family. When it hits this close to home, you really stop and reflect and just ask, what are we doing about the situation? Where are we at as a culture? How are we managing crisis? How, are we there for our friends and our family, in an American society where everyone is so busy and so consumed with their self, you look around and people are hurting and people are dying and they don't have solutions. And I just really feel like there's been a void and it's happened quickly, but it definitely didn't happen overnight. And so I have started it's going to be a nonprofit, but it's going to be a television show called The Sound of Hope. And it is an alternative solution for mental health that recommends a lifestyle change, spirit, soul, and body. And, in place of running to drugs and alcohol and, toxic relationships and all the things that we run to escape from our problems. And so I'm excited about that because we did have a night of hope, and it encouraged a lot of people and really just brought awareness to the issue and how you can address it with people that are struggling, that have depression and anxiety. And honestly, the biggest thing is that it's for every one of us. It's not just for people who have a known diagnosed mental illness. It's for all of our mental health, because none of us know how we're going to respond if something tragic happens to our life. If we lose the dream job that we've desired our whole life, if we lose our spouse, if God forbid something happens, in some kind of tragedy, we all respond in different ways, or just smaller things, just managing day-to-day crisis. When we don't take care of like our spirit and our soul and our body, we don't know how we're going to respond. And so we need to be aware and really giving listening to our body and knowing what we need, what our mind needs, what our spirit needs. And I think there's just been such a busyness and distraction from our society that we haven't been able to really listen and stop and take care of what's needed. So I'm excited about that show and taking that out. I want to tour with that as well. So yes, that's kind of what I'm up to right now. I'm also continuing writing, and I'm recording some new songs and hoping to get those out this year. So I'm excited about this new year.
I think it's beautiful, and I think it's amazing what you're doing. I love that you're taking the platform that you have and using it to pour into others and to address the issue. And I know that the underlying theme of this whole episode is the fact that we have to have these conversations. We have to talk about it. It's not going away.
Right.
And we need to bring it to light. And so thank you for doing that. And I love that you're using your God-given talents and gifts to literally give a voice to the subject.
Thank you so much. Yeah, right back at you. I appreciate you doing this podcast. I think it's so needed, and we need 100,000 times more people doing this. So thank you for taking the initiative and the time to allow these conversations to be heard. And I hope that many, many people get to hear your podcast, girl.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And it's just, we're the vessels. And if we can reach one person with it, then that's the goal. That's the end goal. And then, so you wrote a beautiful song for Lindsay's service. And your family has the most amazing gifts. The voices that have come out of your family amaze me and blow my mind every time someone sings. So tell us a little about the song, and then I'd love for you to share it with us.
Yeah. So, man, I miss Lindsay, and we grew up together. We went to church camp together. We hung out at our grandma's houses together, and she was a beautiful, beautiful soul, beautiful spirit. She had so much amazing gifts. Lindsay, I just want to talk about Lindsay. Lindsay was an amazing singer, and she, you always knew what, Lindsay was a truth teller in how she felt, and she was very honest and real about that. And I love that about her, because of some people, that just kind of, carry stuff, but she was very, you'd always know what she felt about an issue. And we had a lot of fun together. She had such a fun personality, always ready for a good time, and just, didn't take herself too seriously, and I miss her. So I haven't been able to be around her in a while, because since I moved to Nashville. And when I heard about the news, all the floodgates open when you think about, man, like, what could I have done had I been there? Man, I should have reached out more. We should have been talking more. I should have went and seen her. I should have told her to come see me more. All the things that you wish you could have done while she was here, and just to tell her how much we love her and how cool she is, how amazing she is, and how, there's nothing too big that she couldn't do. And I wrote this song, I guess the day before her funeral. Her mom had asked me to sing worship at the funeral, and then God put on my heart to write this song for her. I knew I was supposed to share it, so I shared it with John and ended up singing at her graveside, just me and the acoustic guitar, and just whatever I could give to help heal any heart, or just bring comfort in any small way for any small moment, And so the song is called Lindsay, and it's for her and for everyone that has lost someone. It's kind of, there's hope in it, there's hope in her life, but also just the awareness of that it can happen, and it's happening all around us. Hope I can get through this. I've been suffering with a cold, so here we go. It's called Lindsay. I know you struggled to climb the mountain, to face the demons in your way. Some days you conquered, raised high your banner, smiled and made the world a better place. You're an angel to me. You took joy in helping those in need. Your great adventure was your family. You loved fiercely and you fought bravely, and now fly high, our angel Lindsay. Unanswered questions in our mind. What could I have done? How did I miss the signs? But in her darkest moment, when she lost sight of the truth, that's when mercy came shining through. You're an angel to me. You took joy in helping those in need. Your great adventure was your family. fly high, Angel Lindsay. Those heavenly wings. Join the choir and sing. Those heavenly wings. 'Cause you're an angel to me. You took joy in helping those in need. Your great adventure was your family. You loved fiercely and you fought bravely. You loved fiercely and you fought bravely. Now fly high, Angel Lindsay.
Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome.
Your heart with us. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man, I miss her too, man. I miss her too. And she sure was beautiful. But you know what? Through this podcast, her light's going to shine on.
That's right.
Where can everyone find you on social media and learn more about your show?
Yeah. I'll be announcing it in the next couple of months. But my website is AndreaThomasOfficial.com. www.AndreaThomasOfficial.com. And my Instagram is Instagram/Andrea Thomas. And my Facebook is Facebook.com/Andrea Thomas Official as well. So anyway, thank you so much for this. And I would love to connect with anyone who maybe is going through this as well and would like to follow anything that I'm doing and new music coming out. Would love to meet you, talk with you. So
thanks, girl. You just keep using your voice.
I will. Thank you. And you as well.
And my next guest is my beautiful friend, Kristen. I had the happenstance opportunity to meet her. My husband and I went out for dinner at this amazing steakhouse that's got this delicious chef-prepared meal for you on this rustic ranch wedding venue. And there's like a kangaroo and a zebra and a camel and craziness. So it's this magical little place. And this drop dead gorgeous blonde bombshell came out and was our host for the evening. And then at the end of the night, we started chatting, and little did I know this was going to be a friend that I was probably going to have for life. And we both have some connections with the issue that we're talking with today, unfortunately. And she feels very strongly, just like I do, about sharing the message with the world and being the change in this conversation that needs to be happening. So without further ado, you guys, let's say hi to Kristen. Hey, Kristen, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks so much for letting me be a part of this.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm going to go ahead and let you take the reins and share your story with the listeners.
Okay, so I've never done this before, so I kind of don't know where to start, which is rare for me who can talk to anyone. But so a little bit about my family. I was raised by my dad and my stepmother, and my stepmother raised four of us. And so she was a part of my life for, I don't know, maybe 25 years. And she was a part of everything for us. So she came to all my college graduations, my police academy graduation. When I got married, she was there. Everything that was huge in my life, she was a part of. And then in January of 2016, actually back up in December of 2015, we spent our last Christmas with Renee and my dad. And then in January of 2016, we decided to come home and visit them. And on the evening that we arrived, which was the 20th of January, we actually had dinner. We spent the evening in the ranch. And then tragically, Renee committed suicide that night. And I was there. Me and my husband and longtime family friend Jerry were all there with my dad. My stepmother committed suicide by gunshot. She did it in front of my father, right next to where we were staying. And when we heard the shots, and I heard my dad, it changed our lives forever. And I don't know how to kind of put it in words. I have recently started telling our story. It actually took about 2 years to even tell anyone what happened, because we in some sense, it was so shocking. And I think my dad felt ashamed that happened, and he didn't want to put a bad, I guess, kind of film over her, and didn't want people to think badly of her for this happening. But we believe that a lot of that had to do with she had a head injury from falling off a horse, and she was also on prescription medication. And we've done a lot of research since. And also after this happened, when I started opening up, I was amazing how many people that I had met that had experienced similar circumstances within their own family and their home. And so it was actually interesting, because I did not know it was as common as it is. And when all of this happened, and the night that happened, I went into complete cop mode. I had training. I'd been to suicide calls before. I had seen it. But I guess because I'd never experienced it within my own family, I didn't really associate the two, that it was, I guess, as common as it really is. And so when we obviously had law enforcement come and investigation and all the steps that went into that. And then it was about picking up the pieces with my dad, who had now suffered severe PTSD, severe PTSD from it. And we're trying to treat him now. And everyone, I think, reacts differently to circumstances. I know for me, I think that a lot of my training has been an aspect on just being able to handle it more emotionally, whereas my dad has handled it much different. And so after this, after January, we spent the next 5 months picking up the pieces and just trying to get my dad in order. We had her memorial. Renee was very well known in this area in North Texas. She was a realtor. She was vibrant. She was, at her memorial, she had over 250 people attend. Everyone loved her. Everyone loved her. I had no idea. And if you would have told me that night at dinner, that was how it was going to end, I would have said, you're crazy. There was not a single sign that was going to happen. She texted me before it happened. She texted my little brother before it happened. They were planning a trip to go to Canada the next weekend. It was so unexpected. And so after she passed away, we decided to basically we wanted to start a nonprofit that originally my dad wanted a focus to be substance abuse and helping others. I don't think he really knew what he wanted to do, but he knew he wanted to help. And then when I prayed about it, and I really thought about our purpose and our story. And so I went back and had a meeting with my dad, and I just said, the honest truth, the truth is Renee did commit suicide, and there's nothing that you can do to change that. And that is now your story, and it's our story. And so we need to to grasp that and to accept it. And part of that is to move forward, and healing is to be able to help people that we can help because we've lived it. And Renee had two of her own boys that one of them has done really well. The other one has not done well. And he suffers from extreme just depression and a lot of other things. So there's suicide obviously impacts the ones that are left behind, more so than the person that's gone. But people don't realize how much it impacts people so differently. And then my other brother, who is just a tough guy, he's much more of the level-headed. So we all have kind of, I guess, dealt with it differently. So with this nonprofit, we decided that we really wanted to be able to help people that have attempted suicide, loved ones that have experienced suicide, that are left behind. So we want a program that is therapeutic with animals and with worship and with God and a church and therapy and healing within our ranch, because I believe that our ranch kind of has a purpose for that. Renee loved Oak Meadow Ranch. She absolutely loved every part of being there. And so it's pretty cool to be able to have a place where potentially we can help other people. And so that's what our nonprofit is. We started raising money in January 2016, and it's grown. We've raised so much money, and we've donated a ton to other organizations, but it's the Renee Ewalt Wellness Center. And so we've reached out to a couple of other, like 9line, that works a lot with veterans and law enforcement, because it's a huge problem within that community. And since we were police officers prior, we kind of hold true to that. And so we want to do some stuff with also law enforcement and military, but also just individuals. So that's kind of, gosh, I hope I explained my story.
You did amazing, and it's beautiful. And I love that. I love your heart, and I love your vulnerability and your willingness to share your family's struggle and what that looks like on all of the levels, from the trauma itself to the recovery, from each individual family member. And that's exact. And I love that you've turned this into a purpose to serve others and to help others, and to know that her vibrancy and her joy will live on the ranch, and will go to help those that are hurting and to provide a place of peace and comfort. And I know that she's so proud of you for that. So I appreciate you so much, because I think that there are people that are at home right now that have unfortunately suffered a loss like you have as well, that need to just see someone else that is moving through and picking up the pieces and continuing and serving the greater cause. So thank you. I love you, and I love your heart.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you allowed me to tell my story. It's still hard, so I'm still trying to kind of put it in words with explaining, with, telling that it does get better. It does. Like, it gets easier a little bit, but some people it takes longer. And that's what I've learned. That's the hardest part. That, like, for my dad, it's taken so much longer to kind of accept. And that's the first step that I found, is just accepting that that's what's happened. And now what do we do?
I'm bringing on this next guest because I really want to have this conversation within the church community, within the Christian community. You guys know that I'm very adamant about changing the stigma around this subject. So today I'd like to welcome my good friend and pastor's wife, Dawn Simmons. Hey, Dawn, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. The sun's shining. It's a gorgeous day, despite the heavy and dark subjects that we're talking about. But I know that you and I have talked a lot about this, and we're both pretty passionate about shedding light on this subject. But I wanted to bring you in. I know you serve a role, and you provide pastoral counseling to people that struggle with all different types of mental health issues.
Right.
And can you just speak a little to this topic within the church community, among Christians, and what your take is on having the conversations?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding and miscommunication in the Christian community on dealing with any kind of mental health issues, suicide, depression, anxiety. The list goes on and on. I think well-meaning people have done a lot of damage to other believers by telling them, well, if you loved Jesus enough, if you prayed enough, then you wouldn't suffer with all this. And that is absolutely false, because I've known many people that were extremely strong in their faith that suffered with that. That'd be like telling someone that has cancer, well, if you just believe enough, God's going to heal you. God can heal anybody of anything, but that doesn't mean that he will. But he does give us counselors and doctors and medication to help, because just like any other illness, that's what mental illness is. It's a disease. People can get treated for it.
I'm really grateful that you're willing to have that conversation and stand as a woman of faith and stand, in front of your congregation, your community, in the world, and say it's okay to talk about these things, and it's okay to, talk to counselors, and it's okay to take the medication, and it's okay to do what you have to do, because it's exactly like what you said. Our community can see someone with cancer and know that needs to be treated, but yet there's this stigma that you're not a good enough Christian if you're struggling from depression or anxiety. And so when people come to you, do they typically have that stigma in their head that they're, that they're not a good enough Christian, or they're not talking to God enough? And what do you provide to them in that place?
They do. And actually, usually by the time they're at a point where it's like, I've got to do something, they're pretty terrified. They're terrified of, oh gosh, what's this person at church going to think because I struggle with any of those given illnesses? And the first thing I tell them is that there's no stigma. Again, and I keep going back to, it's like having cancer, because cancer is so prevalent in our society, but nobody shuns people for going and getting help when you have cancer. And the first thing I tell them is, you're doing exactly what God would want you to do. The Bible does tell us to get wise counsel. The Bible tells us to get help. That's why we're put in a community of other believers known as the church, is to get help. And the first thing I do is try to help them to understand this doesn't mean that they're broken in such a way that, God's not going to love them because they have this mental illness. Quite the opposite. And that it's okay to get help. And I encourage them to seek I'm a lay counselor, a lay ministry counsel. Depending on what's going on, I more times than not will recommend that they go see a good Christian counselor, which I have a few that I can recommend. And also ask them if they've discussed getting on a prescription, because a lot of times counseling and medication go hand in hand. It's just like any other illness. Sometimes you can try to fight it, and your body tries to fight it and get over it. But many times with depression and anxiety, we need to have medication to help go along with the counseling.
So I was raised in a very legalistic, strict religious upbringing, and the old school back in the day, even with, cancer or any type of illness, it was, you just got to pray about it.
Right.
And it took, I've seen the evolution of where, they got to the point where it was like, okay, no, God gives us doctors and God gives us medication, and we need to seek help in those. So I feel like the mental health within the church, that subject is getting there. And I think we're moving in the right direction. And I think there are many more conversations within the church now about mental health and depression and suicide than there ever has been before. So my hope is that we will eventually all be, a group of believers that are willing to speak about these things, and more people like you out there that will direct people and say, it's okay. You can be a Christian and still deal with depression and anxiety and need counseling and medication to get better.
Right.
And so on that same subject, you know, today's episode is all suicide prevention, mental health awareness. And I really want to reach whomever may be sitting at home that feels like they're at the absolute end of their rope and feels like there's no hope. What would you say to that person right now? What are the steps you would give them in that position?
I would tell them first and foremost to call a suicide prevention hotline. There, you can Google it and get one anywhere, or an extremely well-trusted, very grounded in their faith believer. The reason why I say you have to be really careful is because there's still a lot of people, well, they're just attention getting. They don't take it serious. And a lot of people don't know how to handle that. So they may just say, oh, well, you're just having a bad day, and give platitudes and kind of downplay the fact that this person is in such horrific pain and anguish that they think the only possible solution is to end their life. And a lot of times they think that they're doing their family and friends a favor. And I just, you can't ever take that too seriously. I always refer them to a professional when they're saying, I'm thinking about killing myself. You always need to send them to a professional.
Absolutely. Another hard, tricky subject with this is the fact that I know I was raised in this manner, and by no fault, just, you know, people are human, but I was raised that suicide, you went straight to hell. It was, you know, murder. You were killing yourself. And
a lot of people believe that if someone commits suicide, that they're going straight to hell. I absolutely, positively do not agree with that. If that person was a believer, meaning that they accepted Christ as their Savior, and it was a heart decision, not a head decision, meaning it's not a religion, it's truly about a relationship, then I believe, regardless of how that person dies, especially since we're talking suicide here, I do believe that they will go to be with Jesus in heaven. And I think that's so sad when I hear, well, you know, they lived this wonderful Christian life and got off track and didn't have enough faith, and now they're in hell. That is absolutely the furthest thing from the truth. The Bible tells us that once we are Jesus's, once we accept him as our Savior, there is nothing that can snatch us out of his hand. So that is absolutely non-biblical to believe that if someone that is a true believer commits suicide, that they will not spend eternity with Jesus.
I think that's huge. And you know that I've experienced the loss of a couple of friends to this. And up until the first time that I ever had to experience it, that was what I had always learned and what I had always been taught. And so it was so heavy and it was so hard. And then in cleaning up the house after they lost the first one, they found a note and it said, I'm forgiven and I know Jesus. And it wasn't a note, you know, it wasn't a suicide note. It was just a note he had written where he was just writing his heart out. And it gave me so much more peace, where I thought, you know, like, right. He knew God, he knew Jesus, he had a relationship. It was in his heart. He just got off track. You know, he battled an illness.
Exactly.
So I think that is something important to bring to light. And I think that this is a conversation that we have to have more and more within the church and within our community. And we have to let people know that they can come to us. And so you as a counselor, and I know there's pastoral counseling all over the country and the world. I know that there's licensed counselors all over the country and the world. But the biggest thing, I think, is that people know that they can come and they can speak to you without judgment, and that's what we really ask for them to do and want them to do.
Right.
Those that are sitting at home that feel judged, that feel like they can't reach out, they can't talk to someone about this because, oh man, what's my pastor's wife going to say if I go tell my pastor's wife that I am dealing with depression? So what do you want them to know right now?
Honestly, if someone's in the middle of that crisis of feeling like, oh gosh, I cannot go on, the absolute best thing they could do, because it's instant, is contact a suicide prevention hotline. There's usually minimal waiting because it's nationwide. and they have people there that can help get them to where they need to go in that moment. Whereas someone like me, I'm not available 24/7 or even local professionals. So, I mean, I think that would be the thing I would recommend is call the suicide hotline. Because too often what happens is it's in the middle of the night and a lot of times it's going to be at night that people are thinking about it, because it's usually when everything's quiet and everything's trying to shut down and their brain is definitely not shutting down because of all the hurt and the pain, that's where they don't know what to do. And that's where they need to have that non-judgment of the person that's working at the suicide prevention to call and help them. And many times they're able to refer them. Sometimes, depending on the severity of where they're at in their suicidal thoughts, they can help them to be calm, to kind of regroup and feel a little bit more peace, and in the morning go get help. Sometimes they'll have them go right away to a mental hospital in the area, mental health hospital. So while, yes, it's always great to know that there's counselors and lay counselors and churches around that can help, if they're in that moment, please, 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 and don't think anything of it. It's an anonymous call. You're not judged either way. It's to call and get immediate help before you have a chance to have those thoughts spiral even further out of control.
Absolutely. I think that's crucial. And I appreciate your time today. I thank you for taking your time out to shine a little light on this. And I hope that there's someone listening at home that listens to your advice and follows it. And I hope that there's a little peace given to any family who, God forbid, has had to experience the loss of a loved one.
Well, thank you for having me. And again, you can tell when I talk, I get very passionate because this has hit close to home for me personally, and many, many people that I have counseled and tried to help, both friends, family, and church members and community members over the year. And it's a heartbreaking, and I'd go so far to say epidemic in our society and in our culture. All I can, in my final words here today, I would just tell you that you are loved, you are wanted, and that there is a way out. And please know that there are people out there that will not judge you, that want to help you, and will do everything they can to help.
I can't begin to thank my guests today enough for sharing their truths and their stories. It's my hope that their stories go on to impact someone that needs it. If you or a loved one needs help and are having suicidal thoughts, you can call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. Or you can visit the Suicide Prevention Resource Center at sprc.org. The National Alliance on Mental Illness is another great resource. It's NAMI.org. You guys check on your loved ones, check on those around you. It's a new year, which comes with all types of hopes and expectations, and just be there for those who may possibly be struggling and need you today. Go like us, share us, write a review, and tell your friends about the podcast.